We are about 2 minutes away from the end of this trading day. Scarlet Fu and Vonnie Quinn here with you. And of course, to take you through the closing bell, we've got a global simulcast. We're joined now by Massar and Emily Graffeo, who is in for Tim Stenovic. So it's an all-ladies Friday.
Wow.
Yes, bringing together the best of Bloomberg Television and radio. And welcome to our YouTube audiences worldwide as we parse through the most important moments of this trading day. And Carol, it's been a slow... I guess, drift lower in the last hour or so. Not a whole lot of headlines crossing. Everyone's waiting for the summit between President Trump and President Putin. That's not going to move markets, but we are keeping a close eye on the headlines.
Yeah, kind of fascinating, right? To see what happens. And it's going to be several hours before we know, and if we indeed get that joint press conference. In the meantime, if Warren Buffett and Berkshire likes you, it's a pretty good day because we've seen some home builders move up on that, and in a big way, United Health just soaring thanks to Buffett and some other wealthy and well-known investors buying into that name.
Overall, though, I would call the market fairly calm. It is the summer, and if you look at the VIX, we're at 15 right now, so that's fairly low, even though we're seeing, obviously, a very high-stakes meeting here between two of the world's biggest leaders.
And you do get the sense, Emily, that, the market is ready to make some moves if anything major happens, but nobody is actually really expecting anything, at least market moving, to happen. But you did see a little bit of weight to the dollar, many reasons, I suppose, but also generally just geopolitical risk there as well.
I'm looking at the VIX, and it's crept higher the last 2 days, but it's at low 15, which is pretty remarkable, showing the lack of concern that's out there, at least in the near term, as the S&P 500 holds near record highs. And the Dow, if it closes higher, we are looking at what should be a record high for the Dow Industrial for the first time this year of 2025. All right. That is your closing bell, and we're looking here at modest losses for the S&P and the Nasdaq, down 0.3% and 0.4%, respectively, although they do finish the week with gains. And the Dow Industrial is just missing, it looks like, that record high. On an intraday basis, it did make an all-time high, but for the close, it is just the highest since July 23rd. And the Russell 2000, kind of the laggard here, losing about 0.5% on the back of some fairly mixed economic data that throws into question whether the Fed is definitely going to cut in September.
Yeah, I feel like that's been the way for the last few weeks, right? We get a good point, a bad point, and the narrative changes. Having said that, going back to the S&P 500, guys, almost an even split, about 202 names, Vonnie, to the upside on this Friday session, 299 losing ground.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, you said it earlier, Carol, healthcare was the best sector in the S&P 500 if you look at the map. And why is that, of course? Well, it's because of Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, just can do no wrong in any market, it would seem. Financial is the worst performers, down 1.1%. But generally, I mean, it looks like it was more of a down market. But, you mentioned it, Carol, about half and half, really.
All right, so a lot of red, though, on that IMAP chart here at Bloomberg. All right, let's go do some of the individual gainers on this Friday session. We're going to go back to United Health, number one gainer, as Vonnie laid out there too, in the S&P 500. That stock finishing with a gain of just shy of 12%. We know the big news. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway and some of the world's wealthiest investors buying into this name. This includes David Tepper's Appaloosa Management, George Soros's investment firm, all investing in the company. We get those filings from these companies. The investments were a welcome reprieve for this company that has seen its stock fall about 40%, 46% this year. It's had a rough time, we know. Go back to December, the shooting here and killing in New York City of one of its senior executive. They've also had a federal probe. A lot of things going on for this name, but definitely getting a stamp of approval in today's session from those big name investors. Got to mention Intel, guys, up for another day, 2 days in a row that we've seen this one rally in a big way. Actually, maybe it's 1, 2, 3. It's been a while, actually, that Intel has been on the move to the upside. Gained about 7% yesterday on that Bloomberg exclusive that the government, the U.S. federal government, is considering an investment. We got a little bit more color around it that might be using funds from the U.S. CHIPS Act to take a stake in Intel, again, according to people familiar. So Intel adding another 3% to its gains. I think it's up something like 27% this week. It's really just been on a tear. And then had to mention Opendoor. This one, there's been speculation about the company's CEO. Well, indeed, we got news that Carrie Wheeler is stepping down from her roles with the company. She was also board chair at Opendoor. And so we saw Opendoor at its highs up 16% today, finishing the day with about a gain of about 4%. 4%.
All right, for the decliners, let's start with Applied Materials. This is a producer of chip-making gear. They gave a disappointing sales and profit forecast, and it fell the most since March 2020, closing the day down 14%. The company said revenue will be $6.7 billion in the fourth quarter. Estimates were for about $7.3, and the CEO said they're seeing less demand from customers in China. We got a downgrade from B of A on the back of that, and that stock is down 22% over the last year. Roblox is a stock that is up 100% year to date, but it was falling today after the Louisiana Attorney General said in a lawsuit filed against the online game maker that their products are used to facilitate and distribute child sexual abuse material and the exploitation of minor children. This is a very popular stock with retail, with fund managers, but big serious news today here with Roblox. TD Cowen actually affirmed a sell rating on the stock and wrote that regulatory risk is non-negligible at the company. So we did see Roblox closing the day down about 6%. And then finally, Flowers Foods. This is the parent company of bread and snack cakes. They're the parent company of Wonder Bread, Dave's Bread. You might know that brand. And they make other packaged bread. They cut their year outlook, and second quarter revenue did disappoint due to stiffer competition. They said the continuing challenging economic environment and shifting consumer trends have pressured their end markets and hampered recent results. So we did see that stock close the day down over 5%.
All right, let's take a look at the Treasury market. You can see lower prices, higher yields, certainly at the longer end of the yield curve. We had some contradictory data out today, whether it's retail sales or consumer sentiment, that raises questions over what the Fed does next. But everyone, of course, is looking ahead to next week's Jackson Hole symposium, where Jay Powell will be speaking at the second half of the week to get a sense of what's next from the central bank. All right, in terms of the stories out there, one thing that caught my eye, Carol and Emily, was about airplane prices, airplane ticket prices, and how it's been a lot harder to find prices that are cheap. They've gone up this quarter, certainly from the preceding quarter, as well as from a year ago. Remember when all these airlines were warning that things were not looking good and they were downgrading their forecasts?
You know, the person to talk to about this is Charlie Pellet. If anybody knows Charlie from the radio, he finds deals everywhere, and he's been talking about a deal to Iceland for $225, but you have to stay until Christmas.
Wait, what?
That's about the only deal out there, though, as far as I can find, because I agree with you, Scarlett. I think even the low-price airlines have gone through the roof. What do you think, guys?
All I would say is that I feel like wax and wane, right? Like if demand is up, airlines can kind of kick up the fares. This has been a big time, right? The summer season, right, Emily, when everybody's traveling. So what happens when that starts to slow down and there's empty seats? Hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers that the fares, certainly for leisure travelers, go back down.
Look, I got to say, I've been getting invited to a number of weddings. I feel like I'm at that age. And with a wedding, you don't really have a choice. If you have to go, you have to go. You have to buy that plane ticket. So maybe wedding season giving the airlines a little bit of leverage as we head into the fall.
Especially if you're going to a destination wedding, then like those tickets will never be discounted.
I wonder if, remember when we used to talk to the points guy and he used to say book on a Tuesday, it's always the lowest price on a Tuesday.
Yeah, but now there's dynamic pricing, so nothing is cheap.
Dynamic pricing, that's true. And also, you know, there are so many strikes as well and so many problems at the different airports and, you know, air traffic control systems and so on, that it's actually difficult to travel even now.
You know what that means? It's time to redeem your airplane points, your credit card miles, or all those points that we all pay a lot of fees for.
Well, listen, the airlines, they want, you know, the seats filled. I'm always amazed. Certainly in the last few years, I feel like planes have been packed and they're always offering, you know, would you like to take a later flight? Because they want, you know, they're either overbooked. So I think what happens is, right, certainly when the planes are packed, they can charge whatever the heck they want. But when the seats start to empty, they're going to want to get people in those seats. So I think we'll have to keep an eye on capacity and whether or not airlines are filling up those seats, and that will determine how much they ultimately charge us.
But I'm always amazed, though, at how cheap airline prices are. Even, you know, a regular economy ticket, let's say, you know,
where are you flying to?
Let's say it's transatlantic. Let's say it's $800 or $900. How does that even pay for the fuel? I mean, these things are huge. You've seen airplanes, right?
Well, isn't it Warren Buffett, since we talked about Warren Buffett today and what he's been buying, that he's always said that the airline business was a bad investment? And I agree. I sit there sometimes and count the seats and I'm like, how are they making money? Because we know how expensive this industry is, Emily.
Yeah, I will say the airport makes a big difference. As a New York traveler, the difference when you're flying out of LaGuardia versus JFK,
yes, I agree.
It almost doesn't matter what you've paid for the plane ticket.
I'm a Newark diehard, man.
Oh, yeah, or
You've had a rough couple of months then, right?